Welcome to the dance floor, where life lessons are learned through the art of dance. I'm your host, Anna Harsh, and today I have a special guest, a former principal dancer for the Martha Graham Dance Company, and now a teacher, a professor at Vassar College in New York, Mr. Steve Rooks. Welcome to the dance floor, Steve.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to reconnect. I really appreciate it.
I miss your classes. I so can't wait to get back on the dance floor for real with you and study and move.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it as well. But again, it's good to reconnect, at least at this level.
Absolutely. I think we're all kind of reaching outside of our box right now to kind of connect with all dancers and be creative.
Yeah. I think that's kind of been the de rigueur now, and it seems like there's hope that things are starting to open up. So I'm really happy about that as well.
Me too. Can you tell my listeners, like, what was your dance journey like? How did you get into dancing, and was that always your passion?
No, in fact, I always refer to myself as a backdoor dancer. And this is what I mean. I feel like the dance world is this room of people, that have had journey. They did intensives when they were young, and they kind of grew up doing the summer, the summer dance things. And they kind of have these careers. And I kind of came in the back door because I started so late. I actually didn't begin dancing until after I left college.
Wow.
It was really amazing. When I was in college, when I was at Dartmouth College, the Dance Theater of Harlem came to visit our campus. And I knew nothing really about classical dance. I was there as a music major, though. And someone invited me to go to the show. And I kind of went. The place was packed. And literally, at the minute that the curtain went up, I was transfixed.
Oh.
It was just something. I think being able to connect with the dancers in terms of culturally, because it's the Dance Theater of Harlem was the first predominantly African-American company that was directed by Arthur Mitchell. So there was that connection culturally, but also, all of the stereotypes I had about dance, particularly men dancing, were all immediately in one fell swoop wiped out. The men were powerful, athletic, and the whole bit. So I started getting hooked. And I did finish my music degree at Dartmouth, but then when I left, I moved back to Washington, D.C. and was teaching, actually assistant teaching a special education class in public school. And then I was taking dance classes at night. And this choreographer, Greg Reynolds, who used to be a dancer with Paul Taylor, saw me in class and he said, I think you may have some ability here. He said, but you really need to give it a shot. He said, why don't you come to New York and just be like an understudy at my company and try taking classes. He said, look, if it works, you can stick it out. If not, you can come back home. But at least, you're starting so late, you want to try to give it a shot while you can. So I took him up on it. And he said, he suggested that I audition for a scholarship at Alvin Ailey, which, at that time I didn't have any concept that would probably be a too noble a thing, but I did it. I auditioned for a scholarship program. It was a hot, sweaty day. And it was just this room full of men. But anyway, a long story short, I got a full scholarship. And so I went from taking 5 classes a week after only been dancing a year to 18 classes a week. The first month
That's
lost.
Insane.
Yeah, the first month I lost 20 pounds, but then began my journey. I was in the Ailey program for about 4 years, ended up going into the second company, the repertory company. And while I was there, I started falling in love with the Graham technique. And then I auditioned for a scholarship at the Graham School. And so was kind of moonlighting, taking classes at Graham while I was dancing at Ailey. But Martha and Ron saw me in a workshop class. And about a month after that, they offered me a contract. So that was after I'd been dancing for 4 years.
Wow.
So then the journey began with Graham. So that's kind of the beginnings. It's kind of.
Wow. And to me, that speaks of taking that chance. You just never know who's going to introduce you to what. And taking that chance, you're like, yeah, sure, it sounds great. Let's do it. And wow.
I think that's that, but it's also just understanding what a precious opportunity it was. I mean, I think starting so late, there was a level of desperation, and I wanted to absorb and get everything I could because if this was going to work, it's going to take me giving everything. And thank God that was, kind of at work for me. It was a lot of hard work. It was all uphill, but it was worth it.
It was worth it.
Yeah.
What was the moment like meeting Martha herself?
It was wonderful. What had happened was actually we were learning an excerpt from a piece called Dark Meadow. This was some of the scholarship students. And as kind of a treat, we showed it to Martha as just what we had been working on. And I kind of, in my mind, I was thinking, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show this to Martha Graham. Then I'll go back to Ailey and then we'll go on tour and then it'll be like that.
No big deal.
But while afterwards, the executive director pulled me aside and said, hey, who are you? And blah, blah, blah. And I kind of described my story. And he told me, he said, look, why don't you learn one of Martha's pieces and show it to her and see what she thinks about it? He said, I'll give you a month to do it. You can use all our audio-visual equipment, but just, work on it and then show it to her. And I thought, great, an opportunity to meet Martha and show her the piece. So I did it. I worked on the yellow variation from Diversion of Angels. Went a month later on a hot July evening. I showed it to her. She said, hey, I'm going to go out in the garden and talk. Thank you very much for showing it to me. And I thought that was it. But then a week later, Ron called me in and said, hey, we'd like to offer you a contract. And that was even before the audition for the company. They just put me out and I was based on that.
That just blows my mind. I mean, because I've studied her work throughout college myself when I was a dance major and taken Graham classes and enjoyed my workshops with you as well. And her work to me was just so inspiring, but so deep, like so mental, like
Well, they've often said that it's a very meat and potatoes technique. It's because Martha spent so much time revealing the inner drama, and showing the effort in the movement, and it kind of has a special. You have to have a special palette, I think, for it. And for me, it just spoke to me. It just made sense. The physicality made sense, and it's a technique that trains you to be, to get better. And so all of those elements just really sat well for me.
Yeah, for sure. Her technique is no joke. You don't play in that kind of technique. There is no room for that. It spoke to me as well. Every time I would take a class, I'm like, oh, I love the strength. Oh, I love the spiral. I love this contraction. It feels so good to me. It just spoke to me too. And that's why I was like, I have to know more about her. And I know throughout college I did that and did some pieces that were Martha-esque. When I would choreograph, I think they were very Martha-esque. And in fact, somebody stopped me after a festival I was performing and did a modern piece. And they're like, have you taken Graham technique a lot? I was like, a little, but just her lines, the way she breaks lines, the way she told a story through movement.
Well, her understanding of theater, I think, is without compare. Everything was specific on stage. I mean, it wasn't an arbitrary entrance. It had to have something was kind of related to the subtext of the piece. And I really like that specificity. And it's kind of informed even how I think about choreography sometimes, just that it shouldn't be arbitrary. There should be a reason behind it. It doesn't mean that everything has to have a storyline, but there needs to be a sense of structure. And just when you look at her works, there's such clarity, even in the midst of this social and internal emotional drama, everything is very clear and everything is very specific in its organization. So
and I was talking to another choreographer recently, and she talked a lot about entrances and exits to me. And I thought of Martha Graham as well. And that really reminded me because I recently just finished a whole musical virtually for a high school because I couldn't go to the school to choreograph the musical for them. And I thought, oh, here we are again, telling the story through movement. And how am I going to get around these, problem areas? We're doing it virtually. And I thought of Martha again because of those entrances and exits, and everything's so clear. Like you said, the clarity is just you're either in or out.
Exactly. And coming in is not an arbitrary thing. It's something significant to the movement and the work of the piece. I think that one of the things, especially with contemporary dance now, it's amazing how much of it has a connection with Martha. And if you see contemporary dance now, I mean, a lot of students aren't aware of it just because they haven't had the historical background. But I look and I'm saying, oh my gosh, this is so close to the fiber of a lot of the things that Martha was doing,
I think her work is timeless. Can you speak a little bit more about that? Like her work is just timeless.
Well, I think particularly now it's starting to come back to the fore. It's in that people now, a lot of dance that you see now, particularly in contemporary dance, it tends to be about something. If you look at a lot of the dance that you see on television and whatnot, again, you're always aware of this kind of subtext or the storyline. And usually it's about some inner landscape of the heart. So because that tends to be an overriding theme of a lot of dance right now, the movement also kind of reflects that. And a lot of that, it really stems from the same kind of point of view that Martha had a lot of in her works as well. So when I look at a lot of the pieces and even if they aren't done with lyrics, you can see where there's this earthy connection, where there's this this celebration and revelation and in the physicality of the movement, you know, and you look at dancers now, they're really into just very intricate physical movement. A lot of it crosses boundaries, you know, and whatnot, where it used to be very clear there was a ballet camp and a modern camp and a jazz. Now everything's kind of melting into this center pot right now.
For sure.
Which you know, it has some disadvantages, but I think one of the things that's clear is that it comes from a really, really authentic, you know, place, or tries to strive toward authenticity.
Yeah, I feel like her work was always truthful.
Yeah.
Really just truthful. Whatever story she was telling, it was the truth about those characters or that movement or whatever feeling or motion.
Yeah. And she would often say, movement never lies, you know, and it doesn't. It's and if it comes from a real place, it doesn't. It's, you know, it either tells it or it doesn't.
Yeah, and I talked about that with the students as I was working through the choreography for this musical.
Okay.
You know, I'm like, how does this, you know, move the storyline along? Is it truthful? What is your character? How would he or she move? Exactly. You know, if you're an animal, if you're a person, you know, where are they coming from and where are they going, you know, emotionally or physically? Right. And so we talked a lot about that, and they have a moment on stage where they just had to walk forward. Okay. It was just a simple thing. And as you know, every dancer's like, well, how am I going to walk forward? You know? So I just kept saying, walk with purpose. Right. You know, what are you trying to share? Exactly. And it was their heart that they were trying to share for that particular moment. So I kept saying, walk with purpose. Like, where are you going?
And even if they don't understand it right away, I think a lot of dancers are yearning for those kind of directives. They're yearning to kind of think about things, you know, whatnot. They're, you know, and you're seeing that come a lot in like choreography that younger dancers are creating now. They're usually trying to say something. They're trying to go with the theme, or that even in the titles of the works is something to try to spark interest. And so I think it's great that you give, you know, you kind of insist upon that in the process. I think they actually benefit from it.
Yeah, I made them journal about it. They might not like me too much this week, but we journaled about it. You know, and I'm like, write down, why would you do that? Or, you know, what is your purpose? You know, what do you love? What is your passion? Write that down and think about that when you are walking forward. You know, it's not just a walk, it's transporting yourself to the, you know, audience in a way that you want to share something. It's later in life that we all were like, man, that was a really great opportunity. I wish I would have thought about it more, understood it.
Of course. Yeah, always in retrospect. Sure. Yeah.
I believe it. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, Steve. And then when we come back, maybe you can share some more advice for new dancers or life lessons that you learned through dance. You know, what's something that you took away from it? We'll be right back with Mr. Steve Rooks.
Wow, Martha Graham was such an inspiration. She was born May 11th, 1894 in Allegheny County in Pennsylvania. That's right here in Pittsburgh. And she died April 1st, 1991 in New York, New York. She is known for her contract and release modern dance technique based on the breathing cycle. She definitely changed dance forever. Some of her most powerful choreographies, such as Night Journey or Appalachian Spring, was known for revealing the inner man. And some of her best quotes are, dance is the hidden language of the soul of the body, and the body never lies. But my personal favorite is, great dancers are not great because of their technique. They are great because of their passion. Let's celebrate Martha Graham's birthday. I think she would be 127 if my calculation is correct. So put on your best contract and release movement on May 11th and celebrate Martha Graham's birthday. And now back to Steve Rooks. Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Mr. Steve Rooks talking all about Martha Graham, her technique. Steve, what's some advice that you would give dancers of today? You know, maybe a life lesson that you learned through dance.
Well, it's interesting. There's kind of been this consistent pattern in my life. I think some of it is an outgrowth of me starting dance rather late. I had to do the extra work. But then I found out in that process of the quote unquote extra work, there's actually a great benefit in that. I'm always encouraging dancers, if they're really serious about pursuing it, if it's a life passion, that just taking class really isn't enough. You really have to do, it's all the homework that helps build you. And it can mean taking some supplementary classes in like a Pilates or gyrotonics or something like that. It could also mean going to museums and just getting inspired, and thinking about art. But a lot of it is doing a self-diagnosis about, okay, these are some of the things that I'd like to accomplish, and journaling and writing, and then what is going to help me get to this task. When I first got in the Graham Company, I was one of the smaller men. One of the directors came and said, hey, we love your dancing, but you need to probably think about, strengthening your upper back and all like that. And I didn't have we were dancing so much, I didn't have the luxury of going to a gym all the time. So I developed a push-up program. And actually, when I first started, when I was doing like 4 sets of 15 push-ups. And then I just kept building it up by 5. And then by the end of a year and a half, I was doing 4 sets of 65.
Oh
and
my.
yeah, so I kept going. But my point is not so much to talk about the push-ups, but the fact that I knew that I had to take a diagnostic approach to trying to correct this.
What can you do?
Right. Yeah, what can you do? And so I think that I would recommend that all dancers do that. They need to do self-evaluation, say, where am I at? Where do I want to go? What beyond just taking class will help me get there? Is it a physical development, or is it some mental development? Is it getting inspired? Is it reading more? So that would be one thing. And the other thing is to really celebrate the process. And I mean, we're in a culture now that it's very, very, immediate gratification. And I don't say that as a criticism, it's just a reality. And so we're geared toward thinking of getting to the finished product and not celebrating the process. And dance is the one, I always tell students, dance, you have to love dance so much, because most of your experience with dance will be in a classroom studio. It's not like for every class you take, you get one performance. Sometimes after 150 classes, you get 2 performances, and one of them's a matinee. And so it's really getting to a place where, as you want to celebrate and treasure each moment and absorb everything you're being taught, where even if it's in an idiom or technique that you're not even passionate about, there's something you can get from it that would be beneficial.
Yeah. The other thing that I have taken was getting certified in Pilates, getting certified in yoga. To me, that was my strength training, conditional training, but also mental training.
Yes, absolutely.
Take a breather. I always tell dancers or performers, if we're doing theater or something, take a breath before you go on stage.
Yeah.
Take an inhale and an exhale.
Exactly. But also something that you mentioned earlier, you said you were making them write in the journals. And that's not a slight thing. That's actually really great. That's a great habit to get, because it puts you in a place of thinking about things and reflecting on your life and seeing where you are in this journey.
So I used to do floor paths all the time, right around, draw where I want the dancers to be and be like, oh, is this a flower? What is this saying? Started looking like art. So you just take a break and kind of look at all of those things. And like you said, do a diagnostic, dive in. Yeah. What else can I do? I like that you also studied music. I know a lot of dancers,
they have trouble with musicality.
Yeah. Well, we also, one of the challenges now is that most dance classes are taught to recorded music now. And that's not a criticism. That's just a thing.
Where we are.
Fortunately here at Vassar, we have live accompaniment, which is great because the students get to have that experience. Because of that, nuances in music and listening to music and having to follow music isn't as critical when it's recorded and consistent all the time.
Yes.
I think I know that I'm probably a little prejudiced in this, but I think it's a good idea for dancers to take a music appreciation course.
Oh my gosh, I think they should study music. Yeah, for sure.
They need to have their ears opened up to possibilities, so they're not locked into just doing the cool tunes that they like. But then they may try something that's in a totally different idiom, a classical piece of music, or jazz, or, drums. We love drums like that, but we also like this folk music here,
right?
And just having the ability to be able to enter into that world and kind of dissect what's going on. And also just in terms of just being able to dance better, having a greater relationship with the music. Because it's nerve-wracking to see a dancer with 10 ears. And not having that connection with the music.
I agree, because that is a conversation. Music and dance is a conversation, and you have to be able to listen as well as speak in the conversation.
Well, if you think about it, when you go to see a dance performance, there are two things that are happening. You're looking at the movement and you're listening to the music. And
right.
So a significant, part of the whole creative process when you're choreographing the music. What the audience is hearing is pretty significant, and it has to have some sort of relationship or at least inform what you're seeing on stage.
I agree. I know I've had 7 years of piano. I'm not sure I was the greatest piano player, but I had piano. I know how to read music, and it really comes in handy as I do a lot of musicals. And I'm reading scores as well as the script. And you have to do more as a dancer and choreographer. We have lots of hats sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
What's the lighting going to look like? What's the costumes? How can they move in the costumes? So explore their dance experience to the nth degree. There's no limits, there's no boundaries. And every dancer probably out there is listening going, I have 3 or 4 other jobs that I do that I didn't realize.
Right, exactly.
And that's great because it enhances your experience as a dancer.
Absolutely.
And I think
absolutely.
It's just going to be more tools in the toolbox, right?
Yeah. And also then when we have it too, then nothing's wasted. I mean, what you can learn about lighting, what you can learn about music, what you can learn about taking that, one hip hop class or taking a tap class or taking this or taking hula, all of those things, can I be added into this toolbox of experience that hopefully if you approach it with the right attitude will just enhance your development as an artist.
It's amazing. Steve, I appreciate all of your inspirational words today. And I hope all of the dancers and artists that are listening around the world today, I hope they take your advice and it really expand on whatever they're doing and really take those opportunities and not miss out.
Well, thank you for sharing your story and advice. I know I'm inspired and I can't wait to get back in your classroom eventually.
I can't wait. It's got to happen. So we got to figure out how that's going to happen. But thank you.
Listen, even if it's virtually, Steve, I don't care. Let's do it.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Thank you.
Whenever I'm going to sneak into one of your college classes, I just want to be in the back and sweat again. I love it.
Love it too. All right. Good. Thank you so
much.
All
right. Thanks everyone for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Dance Floor wherever you're listening. I'm your host, Anna Harsh. And until next time, keep moving and grooving on the dance floor.